Hi everybody, it's John Porter here with BarterPay. We're actually sitting in one of our offices, the satellite office for the Niagara region. And I'm sitting down today with Dan Stefels, who's a real estate professional for the Niagara area. So we're just gonna learn a little bit about what he does and how he applies BarterPay to his business, how it helps his business grow. And so welcome, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate you just dropping by. So yeah, just give us a little rundown on kind of where you come from, what you do, what you're filling your day with right now.
Absolutely. So we are a full-service real estate brokerage.
Yeah.
We are underneath the Royal LePage banner. We focus primarily on residential real estate here in Niagara.
For today's conversation, we're talking about residential real estate. And I know you've been part of BarterPay for roughly maybe a year now, coming up on a year. And just speak to us about what your attraction was to the BarterPay system and maybe about a couple of deals that we put together, or maybe one of them actually. Yeah.
Terrific, yeah. There's a couple big attractions that we had for BarterPay. So the first and primary one was every deal that we've put on the table with BarterPay has been a deal that we wouldn't have had access to otherwise.
Right.
So anytime we have an opportunity to get a new relationship with somebody, it's something we'll always have a look at.
Right.
So having that net new deal that we have come on the table as a result of BarterPay was hugely beneficial. Mm-hmm. The other part of it, of course, is the vast network of businesses that are already within the network. And so having the opportunity to do printing or advertising that we're already spending money on now anyways, and replace that with work and services that we do for real estate.
Absolutely.
It's a no-brainer.
Speak to us about how, once one of our clients would inquire with their BarterPay trade broker about potentially listing a home or buying a home. Let's just talk about listing for a second. How would they go about doing that with you, and what's kind of the mechanics behind it, the paperwork, the flow of the money and all that?
Sure, absolutely. So the way the listing will work, and we'll talk about listing first, is very simple. So it happens exactly the way any other residential real estate listing would happen. One of the things that we're big believers in is relationship marketing, even when we're listing a home. Mm-hmm. So putting a sign up and advertising and putting a Facebook ad is great, but that's typically not where all the deals are going to come from. A lot of deals within real estate, actually 81% of deals within real estate come from other real estate brokerages. Mm-hmm. The listing agreement gets signed. We do it for the regular 5%. All of our commission models are broken into two halves. There's half of the commission, the 2.5 is for the listing brokerage for us. The other 2.5 is on the buying brokerage side. So when we do listing, we sign an agreement outside of the normal trade or normal listing agreement and say we will purchase the equivalent of 2.5% plus HST of trade dollars from you in order to when the house closes.
Right.
If we're in a position where we will double end or where we bring the buyer as well, we will do the other side of the transaction and trade as well. Right. So in a $500,000 house, $12,500 on the listing side, $12,500 on the selling broker side. If we do the deal ourselves, the whole $25,000 is payable in trade.
So if you guys have been listening, Dan basically just said that if you are going into any sort of real estate transaction, you're listing your home, you're buying your home, but we're going to be talking about listings right now. If you're going to list your home, the biggest asset that you own, and you choose to list it with Dan, then Dan will actually take the 2.5% listing commission, 100% payable in trade dollars. The way that works is it's a regular listing agreement that's written up. When the house closes, the 2.5% flows through his brokerage out to him. He will then take a check and give you back that 2.5% in Canadian dollars in exchange for an equal amount of trade dollars. So essentially, you have the opportunity to turn your trade dollars into Canadian dollars at 1-for-1 on every real estate transaction that you put through Dan and his team. We've done a lot of these deals, and we just wanted to sit down and sort of educate the greater BarterPay community on how this works. And so it's you want to take advantage of it. It's a great way to utilize your trade dollars, whether you're listing your home, whether you're maybe a family member is listing a home, or you've got a son or daughter that's about to go out on their own and you're going to be helping them buy a home or also sell a home. You can extend it. It's got lots of reach in that way too. So we're going to sit down now with Ron and Mark. Mark has recently actually listed a home and used Dan as the agent. And so he's going to just talk a little bit about that experience, how it all went, and sort of how the mechanics of the BarterPay transaction work so that he could take advantage of what we have to offer here. So thanks, Mark, for coming in. Appreciate you hanging out with us for a bit here. So you needed to sell a home.
That's
and
correct.
You decided to take advantage of the BarterPay system, right? So tell us about how that all worked.
Actually, it's something that I thought about previous to listing the house was using BarterPay. It's something that totally makes sense. In fact, it was probably one of the easiest and smoothest yet largest transactions that I've ever had through the BarterPay system.
Right.
It's no different than using an agent in cash.
When Dan came in, obviously he just did his regular presentation, his regular consultation, and he was able to list the home and write up the listing as normal. And so how did the sort of the BarterPay transaction work? Was that was obviously a separate agreement that you have with the agent?
Totally.
Yeah.
So just what you said, that the listing of the house went just exactly as it would in the cash world. Nothing was different there. The BarterPay transaction was a completely separate transaction. It was a small little contract that we signed. So upon completion of the deal, I'm to forward the trade equivalent to Dan. In return, we get the equivalent in Canadian dollars back, dollar for dollar.
Right, at the full 2.5%.
Full 2.5%.
Right, so let's just assume that the home sold for $500,000. What that means is when the money flows through the brokerage, through the lawyers, through the brokerages, back out to each side, $12,500 goes to Dan. Dan takes a Canadian dollar check and writes you a check for $12,500, and you transfer $12,500 trade dollars back to Dan.
Yes,
right.
That's the exact process.
Yes.
It's that simple.
Exactly, it's awesome. And the reason Dan would do that, again, just to recap, the reason Dan would do that is because he's picking up a listing that he never would have had. So he gets a new listing, he's gonna get some spin-off business out of that, whether it's referrals or other people on the street seeing the sign, whatever the case may be. So Dan doesn't look at it like, you don't look at it like you're losing out on $12,500 cash.
Of course.
Dan looks at it like he's picking up $12,500 in net new trade dollars. And the reason Mark would want to use Dan is because rather than Mark just going to any old agent and paying the $12,500 out of his pocket from the proceeds of the home, he's now able to take $12,500 of his trade dollars that he's accumulated through bartering his services and convert them one for one into Canadian dollars. So it's really a fantastic business model. Again, if you are a business owner, a small business owner in the Niagara region, and you are going to buy or sell real estate, whether it's residential or commercial, the best thing you can do is get a hold of your BarterPay trade broker. We're going to put you in touch with Dan. Dan's going to come out and provide you the top quality professional services that he offers, and he's going to take the entire commission, listing commission in trade dollars. If he double ends the deal, it means he brings the buyer to the table as well, and the deal closes. He's going to BarterPay the entire 5%, which in your case would have been closer to $25,000 on a direct one-for-one exchange. So one of the things I really wanted to touch on too was some of the peripheral services that Mark was able to obtain in this whole real estate transaction. Obviously the biggest one being the listing, but there was some fringe things. So Mark, just speak to us a bit about some of the other things that you were able to put together through the BarterPay system for the whole house transaction.
Yeah, just before we did list the house, we hired a local mover, Harvey Movings, Atlas Van Lines, and they came and picked up the furniture and distributed amongst the various family members. Beyond that, once it was emptied, we brought in EcoSuds, it's a carpet cleaning company, and they went through the whole upper floor and cleaned the carpets. And then lastly, once the deal's completed, we connected with Frank Richopo, who's a real estate lawyer, and we're actually able to get the closing on trade as well.
The closing costs?
Yes.
Legal fees?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So all in all, when you add all that up, it was around $15,000 to $16,000 that you were able to take from your trade dollars and directly either convert it to cash one for one, or by way of replacing what would have been a cash expense, you're turning those trade dollars into actual cash value on the expense side. So all in all, a fantastic transaction. I'm really happy that you guys got connected. It was a smooth process, and I think the house sold in 5 days or something like that, less, once it hit the market.
Yeah,
so,
and above and beyond that, I can say that Dan actually brought 10 offers to the table, 8 of which were above listing price.
Nice.
So kudos, Dan. Good job.
Thanks.